Yes
course.
po.
Okay. What is a brochure? Anyway.
Miss ano po, ah, para pong flyer for information po about certain objects or things po. Ganun po.
Okay, very good. Yeah, exactly, Jasper. It looks like a flyer, right? Wherein you will be able, you can rather, you can browse or you can read information about a certain topic or certain idea. So that's a brochure. So that's what you're going to do in performance task number 1. So coping with new normal in education. So as we all know, of course, not uh, not all students, teachers, and parents were able to cope with or to adjust with this new normal already, right? As of the moment, some of you perhaps or some of us are still coping and still adjusting with this new setup of our teaching and learning process. Okay, so what you're going to do is that before we move on, so the objectives and the different competencies covered or that will be covered in this particular performance task are the following. So these are the competencies that were already discussed and that were already introduced to you in our previous lessons in previous weeks. So the first one is using words and expressions that emphasize a point. So basically in this brochure, you will be able to use those words that emphasize a point, particularly the transitional devices or transitional words. You may also use adjectives or conjunctive adverbs and a lot more. The second one is determine the effect of textual aids like advanced organizers in the understanding of a text. So basically, people, you will be able to use different graphic organizer. Remember that the information that will be provided by means of your brochure are those information that can be shared to your classmates, to your friends, or to your teachers, and even for parents. And we do agree and we do understand that as 21st century learners, you learn fast and you learn effectively when you are presented information by means of graphs, by means of symbols, and by means of different illustrations than being presented by a very long essay or a very long paragraph. Alright, so you may use any kind of graphic organizer depending on what kind of information you are presenting. And the next one, letter C, employ analytical listening and problem solving. So that is also important because this one can be considered, the topic presented to you can be considered as one of the problems, actually, one of the challenges that we encounter. So how do you employ analytical listening in problem solving? How is being applied in this particular performance task? Remember that before you come up with this brochure, you need to gather information, right? And those information should be valid. How are you going to consider if those information that you will be presenting are valid? Of course, you need to do analytical thinking as well as analytical listening. So you will be given a chance to listen to different information from news report, or you may also get information from videos in YouTube, but make sure that you have to validate those information and ideas that you will include in your brochure. So that's how you will be able to apply analytical listening. And last but not least, get information that can be used in everyday life from news reports. Of course, just like what I told you a while ago, you need to get information from news reports. You may also get information from speeches and informative talks and even panel discussions and a lot more. So it's up to you where you will get the information to be included in your brochure. So technically, those are the competencies that will be covered in this particular performance task. Alright? Questions so far before we move on?
Miss, nagbe-block po ulit yung screen po.
Same problem, my goodness. So sorry for that, people. Yeah. My internet connection gives me headache this week. All right, so for a while. So once again, let me share to you my screen. Okay, can you see it now?
Yes po.
Yes, miss.
Can you see my screen? Okay. All right. Anyway, just inform me if we have a problem here. Okay. Now, so let's discuss the description of the said activity. Why do we have to do that? What's the essence of that performance task? So the school year 2020 to 2021 will always be remembered as historically challenging and different from other years in the life of the Philippine education system, both for public and private schools. Yes, this will be remembered. I do agree with that because this one is really difficult compared to the traditional setup that we had before, or the traditional setup wherein we are used to those setup or that kind of setup in educational system. So the present COVID-19 pandemic has brought extraordinary challenges and has affected the educational sectors, and no one knows when it will end. Basically, we do not know, right? I just hope that we will be able to have access and to have, the vaccine will be available soonest. All right. So in the educational context, to sustain and provide quality education despite lockdown and community quarantine, the new normal has been taken into consideration in the planning and implementation of the new normal policy in education. All right. So, however, of course, schooling will never be the same again. For it has always been done through face-to-face delivery mode, and real-time interaction between teachers and learners are observed. Considering that the conduct of classes in schools pose great risk to students under the current condition, it is understandable that parents are heavily worried and students are greatly challenged with schooling as earlier defined, and the schools need to offer them feasible options for instructional delivery. So basically, just like what I told you a while ago, not all the people can really adapt fast with this kind of situation. So the purpose of this particular brochure is that you need to give, since we are so certain that all of us experience difficulties to cope and to adjust with this situation, I want you to come up with a brochure wherein you can give pieces of advice and guidelines, different tips for everyone, not just for you, dear students, but even for your teachers and for your parents as well, on how to cope with this new normal. Did you get the point? Did you get the point, people?
Yes, miss.
Yes po.
Yes po.
Okay. Alright, so let's continue. Now, what are you going to do and how are you going to do the brochure? So, grade 10 students will create a brochure on how they will help other students or your teachers or your parents to cope with the challenges that the new normal in education brings. So the students in each section will be divided into 4 groups to do the task. Okay? So originally this one was to be accomplished individually. However, we just realized that it would be quite difficult for everyone to accomplish this, given the fact that you were already bombarded with a lot of activities and worksheets to accomplish in other subjects, not just in English. So what are you going to do? So since just like what I told you a while ago, since you will be sharing different tips and pieces of advice on how to cope with the new normal, you may consider discussing the following information. It is very important, people, that aside from giving an advice, of course, you should know the background of the problem, right? You cannot give an advice, right, Hannah, if you do not know something about the problem. Si Hannah parang nag-ano, no? Nagtutour. What are you doing, Hannah? Parang gusto mong magkaroon tayo ng virtual tour sa yung room.
Wala po, miss. Wala po.
Okay, so moving on. So these are the possible things that you may discuss in your brochure. So the first one is background of the problem. So basically, it's COVID-19 and its impact in the educational system. So you may consider giving a very short background or a brief background about the problem, like how did it start, who are the affected ones, something like that. All right, what happened to the educational system, and a lot more. Number 2, DepEd's program for school year 2020-2021. So it was stated here a while ago that, of course, even though we experience this kind of pandemic or this problem, what the government or what the Department of Education wants is that we for us to continue studying. And that is by means of having a lot of programs, particularly the new normal in education, so that this academic year will not go into waste, and then you will be able to learn also to continue to attend school, all right, to continue to study. So because of that, what do you think are the other programs implemented by the Department of Education and how we're going to cope with this situation we are now rather. Sorry for that. Okay, next one, letter C. You may also consider discussing the localized learning continuity plan. Why do we have to consider? Yeah, Lester?
Kanan po.
Yes, Lester? Want to say something?
No po.
Plan. Learning continuity plan of our school. Why do we have to emphasize that one? It is because not all the schools have the same program. Remember, in other parts of the country, let's say for example in provinces and in far-flung areas, they do have this kind of setup which is actually different from ours. Example, students were only given modules, and what they have to do is that they have to accomplish all the activities there with the help of their parents, and then after completing the activities, it's now the time for them to submit those activities and modules to their teachers. However, in our situation, you were given this chance to have or to adopt the modality or what particular modality? Hybrid in a sense that you were given modules, and at the same time you were also given the chance to have this virtual interaction with your teachers through Google Meet or Zoom. So that's really different compared to what they practice. So you also need to give information about that to your readers. All right, next one, letter D. Of course, since you are asked to give tips and advice, it is important that you know the challenges that we encounter, right? So in this new normal or in this new setup, what are those challenges that we experience? Can you give one? At least one?
Slow internet po.
Okay, Austin?
Mabagal po na net.
Yes, very good. That is true. Even I also experienced that. Connection problem, right? Internet connection issues. Very good. What else?
Miss?
Aside from internet,
Miss.
Jose?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Yes, of course, the availability of the gadgets to be used. in this new normal. But good thing for you, my dear students, right? You already have your laptop. So there is no excuse anymore. The only problem is the internet connection. You are very lucky enough compared to other students. Right? What else, Jasper?
Ano po, Miss? Pag may online class po, di po makapag-focus kasi po may unnecessary noises po. Kunyari po, may tahol po ng aso, may kikismisan po sa labas, ganun po.
Yeah, I do agree with you. Right? Ang dami-daming mayayaman na nagpapagawa ng bahay at the same time, nagpapa-renovate. So, pati yung mga tunog ng grinder, ng barena, kung ano-ano pa, yeah, nasasagap din. Yes, we cannot avoid that, right? Okay, what else? Aside from those, anything
Miss,
else that you
ano po?
encounter? The challenges that you encounter so far?
Po,
Miss,
kay Giancarlo po, pa-accept daw po. Ay, okay na po.
Ay, Giancarlo? Is he already here?
Andito na po siya, Miss.
Ay, miss, okay na po pala.
Andito na. Okay na. Alright. Okay. Well, anyway, what else? What are the other challenges that you encounter or that we encounter?
Miss, ano po, yung student po
Yes,
nahihirapan po sa pagsabay sa lessons kasi mostly kapag pinapasa po yung mga gawa namin, hindi po namin talaga siya naaaral kundi minamadali lang namin para mapasa sa deadline.
Yes, I do agree with that. Actually, we teachers are also having a hard time with that. It's like, wala kaming magawa kundi sumunod. Would you imagine that? In our normal setup, usually it takes 3 days for one lesson, if I'm not mistaken. 3 days to 4 days, right? And would you imagine how hard for you, my dear students, to finish one specific lesson within a day? So, yeah, we are quite afraid of what you learn. Of course, kung may natututunan ba kayo o wala. But unfortunately, we cannot do anything about it. Kasi we were tasked to do that. So, ang hirap din. Of course, it's really bothering on our part that we actually do not know if students actually learn or not. Because as a matter of fact, we cannot consider the worksheets that you are submitting as the basis of your learning because I'm so certain that most of you did not perhaps actually study the lesson, but some of you just ask for answers, maybe, or those lessons will be just good for short-term memory and then tomorrow no more. We do not know anymore about that. Okay, so that's really hard also on the part of your teachers. Sobrang nakaka-challenge because we do not actually know how to identify really if you learned something. Okay, that's why it's very important, people, that once you were presented a particular lesson, ask questions. Please ask questions. The problem is that some of the students, whenever they were asked by the teacher, okay po ma'am, wala na po kaming tanong. And then minsan nagre-reflect dun sa mga gawa ninyo, diba? Okay, so please, I do encourage you people to please ask questions and clarification, especially for those lessons which are quite complicated. Alright, quite complex. Okay, so those are the challenges that you encounter. And good thing about you, dear students, that since you are already grade 10, you can work independently. Unlike those children or young students who really need their parents by their side to accomplish different worksheets and different activities. So you can work independently. Good thing for you. Next, letter E, tips or advice on how to cope with the challenges of the new normal. So this will be the heart of your brochure. You have to give us tips on how to cope with the new normal. Okay? Now, just like what I've told you a while ago, your teacher, even I, as your teacher, is still, still coping and still adjusting with this new normal. Now, Grace, can you please give me an advice or a piece of advice on how I will be able to adjust with this setup? What do you think, Grace?
Hindi ko rin po alam, Miss, kasi alam ko naman po na hihirapan din yung teachers lalo na sa pag-check kasi hindi lang naman po isang section yung hawak. Pero I think, Miss, yung siguro po maaaral namin ng maayos yung worksheets kung medyo siguro maaga po binigay, tas mga 1 week po siguro yung allotted time para pag-aralan yun, and yan siguro po maa-absorb na ng utak namin yan.
So, okay, I do agree with that. However, we cannot do that. I mean, one subject or one lesson 1 week, baka mapagalitan kami. Well, anyway, I do understand your agony, people. Kami, hirap din kami doon. Just that, siguro, the best thing that we can actually do is just to, as much as possible, to lessen the number of activities given to the students. Because in reality, of course, hindi naman talaga agad na check or what. That's why I'm not that, for me, personally, I'm not that very strict when it comes to the submission. It's just that I give you time, specific time to submit, because I do not want you to be bombarded with a lot of activities na kung kaya nyo namang tapusin sa ganong oras, okay lang. But then, kung hindi naman talaga kaya, it's just okay. Because in reality, hindi naman talaga after nyo ipasa, check agad-agad. Right? Napakaraming dapat i-check sobra. Imagine how many sections and then how many students. Okay? Alright, so thank you for sharing. Now, so just to give you an idea about the different links where you may find different information to be included in your brochure. So here are the links. So these are just suggestions and possible links that you may use. Of course, it's up to you what kind of link or what kind of resources you will be using for you to present your idea. Okay? So next one, how will your brochure be graded? All right? So your brochure will be graded using the following rubric. Okay? So the first one is organization, which is good for 20%. So this is something to do with the format and how organized the ideas presented are in your brochure. Okay? Next one, we have the content or ideas, which is good for 40%. So the brochure communicate relevant information appropriately and effectively to the intended audience. Remember, you have to think that your audience will be your teachers and also your parents and of course your classmates. Okay? So do not give specific information wherein we will not be able to relate with that or with those. So that will fall under content or ideas. Good for 40%. The next one is conventions. So this one is good for 10%. So this is something to do with the capitalization, the punctuation marks, that information, and then the last one we have here the graphics and designs, which is good for 20%. Okay? So all in all, people, your brochure is 90%. So bakit 90? Bakit kulang ng 10? Now this is what you're going to do. This brochure is a group work. Group work. Now, the remaining 10% or 10 points will be allotted to your reflection. Okay?
Kayo, Miss.
Hello po.
Yes po, Miss. Noted po.
Alright, hello? Kasi ako, my goodness. Okay, so going back. So the 10% will be allotted to your reflection. Alright? So this one should be accomplished individually. Did you get the point? So I was able to upload the performance task on your Google Classroom. So you may browse and you may see the last part, which is good for your reflection, and that reflection is good for 10 points. Okay, so that has something to do with your realization on the lesson, on the previous lessons particularly. So moving on, so I will be showing you examples of the accomplished brochures by the previous students. Okay, my former students rather. So they are already in grade 11. So just to give you an example on how you're going to do that. So can you see my screen? Can you still see my screen?
Yes.
Hello? And sample
Yes,
number
po.
1.
Yes po, Miss. Nakikita po.
Okay.
Connect. Magawa.
Baby.
Walang kwenta yung officers nyo, guys. Tawa ng tawa.
Are you crazy?
Tigilan mo niya yun.
Tapos hindi naman tinatanong. Yes po, yes po. Wala ko nagtatanong.
May nag-hello po kasi kaya akala ko sasagot. Sagot na lang din ako.
Yung usapan sa GC namin about digit.
Japanese Prince.
Prince, ano yan? Nagdi-disco.
Something sa ano.
Ang puti.
Buddy.
Sensor siya.
Chaba idol.
Jasper, baka nagre-reklamo na si Tita Vicky dyan, ah.
Amoy igit ang puti.
Chaba idol si Prince.
Nandiyan na kami.
Prince, ayos ng video.
Hello?
Hi, Miss.
Hi, Miss.
Hi, Miss. Welcome back po.
Yeah. I hate this. Salita ako ng salita kanina, wala na pala akong kausap.
Okay lang po.
Nakakainis. Hindi ko alam kung saan na yung nakating ko. My goodness. Okay, where did we stop anyway?
Reflection
Dun
po.
po sa front page po nung
Sample.
pinapakita
Sample
niyo
po ng
example.
sample po po.
Brochure.
Ala, front page pa lang. Ang dami ko nang pinagsasabi. So, front page ako natapos. Well, anyway, so let us continue. Yeah, the front page. And then here, at the back page, you can see the causes and then the effects of bullying. And then at the center part or at the middle part, you can see the different tips or pieces of advice given for those people who experience bullying or being bullied. Now, as what you can see here, my dear students, in this example, the information presented in a brief manner, right? No need to give a lot of explanations, no need to give a lot of examples, and so on and so forth. As much as possible, it should be direct to the point. And it should be brief. The information should be brief. Because other people or your readers may find or may feel very lazy to read everything that you will present here. So it's very important that the information to be presented are just short. Okay? Next one. Can you still see my screen?
Yes, miss.
Yes po, miss.
Okay. Yes, so the next one here, we have another example, which is quite the same with the first one, but then they considered some, let's say, contact information here for those students or for those people who experience bullying. So you may also actually adapt this example here. Since you will be discussing about coping with the new normal, let's say, of course, one of the challenges that you may encounter is your difficulty within the subject or within the subjects that you're studying. So if you may also consider that if you have some questions or if you have some problem, you may include the contact details of the school here, kung saan pwede kayong mag-report. So it's up to you on how you're going to do that. And good thing about this example, people, is that on the back page, the students here considered using a graphic organizer. So that's what I'm telling you a while ago. It is also important to show or to present information using a graphic organizer. So as what you can see here, they provided statistical data about the effects of cyberbullying. And specifically, the graphic organizer used by the students is, we have here, of course, a bar graph, okay, showing the data on the effects, about the effects of cyberbullying. So, of course, you may consider using a lot of graphic information or graphic organizer depending on the information that you are presenting. And then, next example here. Okay. LGBTQA discrimination. So that is the topic chosen by the students here. Now, as what you can see in the right side, can you see that? Supporters and advocates. Can you see that portion?
Yes po, miss.
Okay. As what you can observe, people, the students here provided quotations or famous quotes given by famous people about bullying or about discrimination. Yeah, that's good. That is a good idea. However, just like what I mentioned a while ago, as much as possible, do not provide something that should be read. I mean something very long that should be read by the readers. So you may consider providing quotations or famous quotes, but make sure that those quotes are just short, okay? Because other people, we have to admit, they will not extend or they will not exert effort and time reading all the details presented in your rubrics. That's why it's important that it must be short and detailed. And I mean short but detailed, but not that very detailed. Okay, when you present the information. And another thing, people, when you come up with your brochure, do not use dark colors as your background because it's really hard to read an information, lalo na kapag yung papel or yung background niya is really dark. Masakit siya sa mata. Okay? So that's one thing that you have to remember. Alright, questions so far? Before we move on?
Miss, naka-black po ulit yung screen.
Miss Black po ulit yung screen.
Okay. Well, anyway, but do you have any questions? So far?
Miss, paano po
None.
i-group?
Alright. So, paano i-group? So, later on, I will be posting your groups, your groupings. I will be uploading it on your Google Classroom. So, basically, since you are divided into how many? To 4. How many members per group? Galing nila sa math. Go, Jaya!
Miss, 8 members po. May dalawa pong 9, may dalawang 8.
So, dalawang 9 and dalawang 8. Tama ba?
Opo.
Okay. Dalawang 9 and dalawang 8. Okay, so I will be uploading the groupings later. Alright? Now, if you will be asking about the submission, so the submission will be tomorrow. Joke. Ano, gustong magwala eh. Submission of your brochure will be, please submit it before November 15. Is that okay with you?
Yes,
November
po.
15?
Yes.
Okay, yes. Okay. Wala nang tawad ha, because I'm afraid after November 15 or let's say the third week and the fourth week of November, you still have a lot of things to accomplish, particularly in other subjects. So baka kayo sa pag-comply with the requirements. So before November 15, please submit your brochure. Now, once you have already read the list of the members per group, please choose your leader and your secretary. Okay? So, bahala kayong pumili kung sino yung leader nyo. But remember, the responsibility of the leader is to make sure that that there must be equality when it comes to the distribution of work. Okay? You have to monitor the progress of your work, people. That's the obligation and that's the job of your leader. And then for the secretary, you have to inform me or to give me the list of the contribution of each member. Okay? Now, how are you going to do the brochure? No need to hire a layout artist for that. Of course, you may consider using your Microsoft Word. You may also consider using Microsoft PowerPoint. You just do the copying and pasting. And then you may use a snipping tool. And then you may submit it to me. Okay? So, in a form of a picture na lang para madali. Alright? Make it in such a way na yung format niya is hindi yung parang format ng tinutupi na papel. Kasi what I have presented to you a while ago, naka-format siya as kung paano dapat nakatupi, yung arrangement ng information. But since you will not be doing the folding of the paper to be distributed to everyone, you may just provide all the necessary information sa front page and then the other information at the back page. Alright? Now, if you will be using different resources, let's say for example, a video in YouTube or information that you may get or you will get in YouTube or from YouTube, please also consider citing the source. Okay? So were you already introduced to how you're going to cite sources to avoid plagiarism? Yes or no?
Miss, nadaanan na po.
One more time, Jaya.
Miss, base po sa memorya ko, parang nakapag-lesson na po kami about doon. Or nadaanan lang po. Ganun.
Very good. At least you still have a point. You still have an idea on how to cite sources. Okay? So, anyway, as we go on with our lesson, you will be introduced on how to cite different sources to avoid plagiarism. But please do consider citing sources in your brochure. Okay? Questions so far?
None po.
None po.
Questions so far? Okay,
Wala
none.
po.
Are you sure? So if there okay. So if there are no more questions about your work, so let's call it a day. So for your assignment, just read in advance the lesson or the next lesson, and that would be lesson number 7 or lesson number 8. All right. So if there are no more questions, you may have your break now, dear Marks. Thank you for today. Thank you for your time, and please enjoy your weekend.
Adios po.
Bye.
Adios. Thank you, Miss.
Salamat po, Miss.
Thank you po.
Thank you, Miss.
You may leave the Google Meet now.